Kia ora, welcome to the third day of the COVID-19 Masterclass. I'm Jackie Hanningham, the manager of the Otago Global Health Institute, or OGHI for short. We have a slightly different audio-visual setup here today. We're not expecting any technical difficulties, but if there are any, please bear with us. Today's webinar is going to run for 1 hour, so we'll be finishing at around about 1 p.m. New Zealand time. Just a reminder that the Masterclass webinars are all being recorded and will also be available on the OGHI website later. We are also live streaming through the OGHI Facebook page. During the webinars, each speaker will present their presentation, and you can ask questions at any time through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I will then read the questions aloud so the speakers can reply. Also today, we're going to have a short live Q&A session for our live audience in Suva, Fiji. We have a very tight schedule of webinars, so if we're not able to get to all the questions, we will ask our speakers to provide written responses, which we'll then post on the OGHI website. Our first speaker this morning is Dr. Shyamal, who is in the School of Pharmacy at the University of Otago. Dr. Das is going to talk about the University of Otago COVID-19 Hand Sanitizer solution.
Kia ora kato. Thank you, Jackie and Professor Philip Hill for the invitation to speak at this conference. I'm a pulmonary drug delivery scientist. Since COVID-19 virus primarily attacks the lung, I was contacted by few academics and industries to conduct research on developing inhalers of drugs and vaccines for COVID. Meanwhile, my team has voluntarily taken time to produce hand sanitizer during this lockdown period to help essential services and the community. I'm sharing this story with you now. Why hand sanitizer? While the world is waiting for vaccines and treatment available for COVID, one of the current strategies is to reduce the transmission of this virus. Hand hygiene plays a key role in reducing this transmission. Hand sanitizer, we also call it hand drops, are commonly used for hand hygiene because they offer improved compliance due to portability, ease of use, and suitability for use in areas with lack of accessibility to sinks or other facilities for hand sanitization. They also offer increased safety and better tolerance than other products. Therefore, hand sanitizer became an essential commodity during this pandemic. I also want to buy some hand sanitizer in Dunedin, but all I found is this, out of stock. And this sort of shocking news in the Otago Daily Times. In fact, there was an acute shortage of hand sanitizer all over the world, including the US and Europe. You can see even the Parliament in Europe, it was discussed. So we chose to do help the community with hand sanitizer. As a part of pharmacy curriculum, we learned to prepare a solution, and now we also teach to our undergraduate students, so we know how to prepare a solution. I immediately decided that I would be preparing hand sanitizer and help the community during this pandemic. In fact, I had two options: either to serve the community with our expertise or stay home and continue my teaching and research. I discussed this idea with all my students, with my research students, and all were so excited to contribute to this project. So I got a team, and then the real production thinking. We searched for hand sanitizer. We found that there are two types of hand sanitizer currently in the market: alcohol-free and alcohol-based. They are coming as a liquid or a gel or a foam. Alcohol-based hand drops are considered to be the most effective hand sanitizer, with fast antimicrobial efficacy, ease of use, and good dermal tolerance. Non-alcoholic preparations are also available. They have active agents like povidone, iodine, or chlorhexidine gluconate. We found that the World Health Organization has a guideline for local production of two hand drop formulations. One is ethanol-based, and the other one is isopropyl-based. We decided to prepare ethanol-based hand sanitizer because ethanol was readily available than propylene glycol. The ingredients we used are alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, and glycerol. Alcohol is the active substance. It unfolds and inactivates proteins and kills a broad spectrum of microorganisms very quickly. It has minimum risk of developing resistance to antimicrobial agents. We also use hydrogen peroxide, which inactivates contaminating bacterial spores in the solution. And finally, we also used a glycerol, which is a humectant. This reduces the loss of moisture from hand and helps keep hands moist. It increases the acceptability of the product, and it is safe and inexpensive. We needed funding. So I discussed this idea with our dean, Professor Carlo Mera, who approved our initial funding. Later on, the University COVID Fund actually gave us all the money to buy the raw materials. We had to look all these different elements before we start. I will explain this in the following slides. First of all, do we have continuous supply of raw materials, especially when we see this sort of news in the web? We're lucky we found one supplier in Dunedin who were able to give us ethanol and other ingredients. Do we have lab facilities? Especially, we needed a spacious lab because we need to maintain the physical distance during preparation. Also, we needed a fume hood, and we are lucky we had all this. My student Tushar bought this alcohol meter from the local pharmacy to measure this alcohol concentration. Can we actually prepare hand sanitizer in our laboratory and distribute it to the public or to the university or beyond? Yes, the World Health Organization says we can, but they also say to check with the local guidelines. That's the point. So I had to discuss this with the Dean of the School of Pharmacy. And then I talked to Professor Philfield. He introduced me with Andrea Macmillan, who is head of University's Health and Safety Compliance. And through University's Health and Safety Committee, including Professor Lyle Hampton and Dr. Hamish Pritchard, who helped me to set up this, and we had to apply for Environmental Protection Authority for hazardous substance compliance. We had to register that, and we registered Dr. Dashtis's group, and as a contact person is myself. And then we had to take a permission from the New Zealand Customs for increased alcohol limit. So we had to do all these preparations before we start. For registration, we had to prepare this standard operating procedure. And that's completely a GMP standard. I had a student who came from a GMP standard working in a GMP certified company. And with his help, we developed this standard operating procedure. And then we had to produce this 14 pages safety data sheet, which we kept in the lab, and also we had to supply to the users. We had to produce this hand draft, and with the help of this university's health and safety committee, we developed this where you can find, even you can check in the marketed products if you buy anything, you need to have this information about the ingredients, which is what ingredients they contain, what concentration, and also the instruction for use, precautions, and manufacturing date, and batch number, and finally the manufacturer name and also the responsible person. We need to have also the pictogram showing what what hazardous class it is. The actual production started, as you can see, the students are doing this inside the fume hood. Here we can see Tusha Shah and Rishi Shah are producing that. And here we can see that student Rakesh Bastula is he is doing the QC check, the final concentration of the sample, which need to be our alcohol content is 80%, and the plus minus 5% we can tolerate that, and we maintain that all through. And then filling, which is the most tedious job. Prakash Bastula, Prakash Khatka, we can see my student is doing also this filling. And it was a different container. So you can see here he is filling, currently he's filling 2.5 liter container, but we will see different types of container later on. Vishal Adhikari, who has printed all the labels and then manually cutting all these labels. You can see how tedious it is. And Nicole Oat, another student who is now labeling this, now using glue. There's a funny story here. One day we were working in the lockdown, during lockdown time, all mine and all my students glue have finished. So I had to drive to home, and I borrowed glue from my daughter. Finding bottle was a struggle. Before the lockdown, going all around Dunedin, we found only 150 bottles. And that was all. And that was a very small bottle. Suddenly, my colleague, Associate Professor Natalie Medlicott, offered me around 200 bottles because she had bought it for her research, and that was in her lab, which was a help at that time. And then during lockdown, we got this sort of bottle from the Polish. You can see how convenient they are. They can just take it in their pocket and use it. From this bottle, we got from the university. And finally, there is no bottles. So what we did, the alcohol supplied in this bottle, and we filled our solution into that. And at the latter stage, we also supplied in these 10-liter jars. Before the lockdown, we were able to distribute this sort of hand sanitizer to our School of Pharmacy staff and students. In fact, on the day of lockdown, we put all this hand sanitizer outside our building, and we are standing aside, and students came and took one by one. And finally, we gave 100 liters to the university to use during lockdown. And between this 23rd March and 2nd of June, we produced around 1,200 liters. Literally, we made it, according to Vice Chancellor, we made this the industry here. And we gave it to all the university services and civil defense, police, fire and emergencies, Seljan ambulance, Maori health provider, and many other local essential services. What impact it had? Well, it obviously reduced the pressure of hand sanitizer on the market. and it certainly facilitated hand hygiene of end users. We believe it helped to reduce the transmission of COVID-19 in this region. I don't know whether it has saved any lives. However, I know that many essential workers, especially police and health workers, are dying of COVID in many countries who don't have access to appropriate protective measures, including hand sanitizer. At economy, I received this email. You can see this email from one of my of the centers of this university during this COVID, and she asked for some hand sanitizer. In her email, she mentioned that the cost was $17 for 100 ml, and she could not afford it for her staff. My students did a calculation, and they found that we have produced 1,200 liters with values over $200,000, and we invested only around $1,300. It was extremely difficult to come and produce these sort of things during this lockdown time, right? When you have kids, they are watching television and learning the death and infection of COVID, right? Knowing you stay home, you maintain the physical distance. I saw my two kids, scary eyes. When I came out, when I went back home, I could feel the same for my students who are international mainly. I waited every couple of weeks after the production, whether I can hear any bad news from them or for myself. In fact, I maintained a deliberate isolation at home from my kids and family. But, how can I stay home when I receive 50s of emails like that? You can see an email here who drives the elderly, who are most vulnerable person. They did not have any hand sanitizer. You can see this Maori provider sent me an email serving 8,000 people. They could not have hand sanitizer. Thought it's a highly sought after liquid gold. You can see an email from a person who looks after a health center, looking after 10,000 patients. They have 40 staff, only one small bottle of hand sanitizer. If you receive this sort of email, how can you stay home? Well, then I started helping in another way. I thought so many emails, and then I thought, okay, there is a Hawke's Bay. DSB suddenly sent email that they want to produce their own hand sanitizer. Can I help them? Yes, I can. I gave them labels, I gave them safety data sheet and all other of my experience, how can they do by themselves. The same thing happened in different surgeries around in Dunedin at many individuals. Many emails from other universities. For example, I received this email, an email from a University of Adelaide. Actually, that person was an alumni of Otago, and she found that in the Facebook, and she contacted me how she can produce there. In fact, on the right-hand side, you can see Hand Sanitizer Australia declared that in their website, our news, and they mentioned that the Australian universities have been inspired by us, and 3 Australian universities have already started producing them. It was widely covered by media, locally, our effort, and internationally, including Europe and the US, Asia. The university, I received many emails from many professors, and also it was acknowledged by Vice Chancellor Health Sciences, and Vice Chancellor sent me this right-hand side email letter, which was good for my students and encouraging to me. Vice Chancellor also acknowledged in the report to the University Council, and the university has given it to social media, including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. In the social media, there was an overwhelming response from the community, received around 40,000 likes, over 500 appreciating comments, over 400 shares, and the videos were viewed over 15,000 times. Some of the comments you can see here on the left-hand side. And although over the 2.5 months, I recall I worked over 15 hours a day, as it was a full of my teaching time, sometimes more than 12 hours teaching, and all the teaching were like from face-to-face. Overnight it was an online, so a lot of extra emails. But on top of that, I had to come to the lab to prepare the hand sanitizer. And on top of that, I had to respond on average 30 to 50 emails each day related to hand sanitizer, either asking to get some free, or wanted to buy from us, or wanted to volunteer in the project, or wanted to donate to us. For example, one company offered 500 liters of ethanol to us, wanted to get advice or how to prepare the hand sanitizer, or someone is coming for a business proposal. However, my team and I have been gratified by the love and affection we have found from the citizens of New Zealand and overseas. You can see this just an example from an ordinary New Zealander in lockdown, impressed and grateful for our initiative. And her email you can see here. Finally, I would like to acknowledge my team, Tusha Shah, Rishi Shah, Rakesh Bashkula, Vishal Adhikari, Prakash Khat, and Kikon Wood, who did all the hard work. I also like to thank my marketing team, Reva Payne, Craig Burley, and Leon Coffin-Kentley. South Hub Persons team, who helped a lot to supply all these materials very quickly, lab supply, and the property services. Finally, I would like to thank Dean, School of Pharmacy, Professor Kalumera, for his continuous encouragement and initial funding. And all during COVID time, Andrew Ferguson, who was my primary contact, who helped me all doing this, all distribution and looking after everything. Professor Philippil, and again the University of Health and Safety team, Professor Lyle Hinton, Dr. Hamish Pritchard, and Andrea Macmillan. I also like to thank Pro Vice Chancellor and Honorable Vice Chancellor, who actually encouraged me to do this. And the funding for School of Pharmacy and University of Otago, the COVID fund. And thank you all.
Thank you, Shyamal. And I'm back on camera. We have a few questions that have come through for you. Firstly, do you have plans to continue production of your hand sanitizer?
Thank you. Yes, my last batch I prepared on 2nd June, which is the level 2. However, I have offered the university, and the university is like a property services are now in an agreement that we will continue to produce for the university in emergency and when they need it. This will be an ongoing process. If university needs, I will do it. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question. Are there any plans to export your hand sanitizer?
Thank you. This sort of questions I have received a lot, whether I can sell them, whether I can export, or whether I can start a business. No, at this moment, I'm not I have no plan for business and no plan for exporting. However, I am now overseas, like for example, Bangladesh. There are many people are in Bangladesh now, the COVID rate is high. So many people are contacting for a consultation around this, and I'm helping them. I'm frequently going to the media in Bangladesh to provide my expertise and to help encourage people to do that. Thank you.
What is the mechanism by which these hand sanitizers work to kill viruses and bacteria?
Well, in my one slide, I mentioned that the alcohol is the main substance which actually unfold and inactivate proteins by it's a denaturation process we call, and they kill viruses.
Okay, and how can we improve the dry hands that result from using hand sanitizer regularly?
Well, in our formulation particularly, we use glycerol to keep it moist. And so, in fact, this formulation, the World Health Organization has done all the studies and about tolerance and acceptability and found that this formula is more acceptable and better to keep our hand moist.
Next question, and I hope that everyone can hear me okay. Is there any reason why the World Health Organization uses the gel version of hand sanitizer? Are the spray versions equally effective?
Well, what we produce this liquid one this one we use only alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, and glycerol. It's the liquid version. To make a gel version, you add deliberately some gelling agent, which may inactivate. There is a chance that they can reduce the activity of hand sanitizer. However, there is always a feeling like what people want, what people like. That's another thing, and what is available. Because when the WHO take a decision, they take a decision thinking all over the world, including they think like Africa, Asia, and Western world. They think all around the world.
What are the most important lessons that the students learned, do you think?
My students, I'm grateful to my students. They are so excited and they are so good human beings that they think that, yeah, they feel helping the community actually the really rewarding experience as a human being. And they feel good that they could help this community during this need through this project.
And can the formula be shared directly with the community?
Again,
can the hand sanitizer formula be shared with the community? Possibly they could make it themselves.
Yes, it is available in the World Health Organization. If you need this formula, you can email me. It is also available in the World Health Organization website. If you don't find, you can email me, or it is also probably in this presentation I mentioned there. Yeah.
And one question from a keen home distiller. Is raw alcohol sufficient, or do you also need the other ingredients that you added?
You need, like, what I understand that alcohol, what we use 96% alcohol. That was prescribed in World Health Organization formula. Now we need other ingredients in the solution, like we use hydrogen peroxide to inactivate any spore-forming bacteria which may come from other sources, right? We also need to, you cannot use alcohol all the time, your hand will be dry. So that's why we are using glycerol. So that keeps your hand moist. So yeah, that's why you are not using only alcohol and washing your hands. You need some other ingredients to make it a nice formula and formulation. That's why as a pharmacist or as a formulation scientist, our expertise is there, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We don't have time for any more questions. So if there are a few more that have come through, we will email them to you, Dr. Duss, and you can answer in writing, and we'll put those on the OGHI website. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.